Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tefty. Today we're looking at the MPC One and what it means as a sequencing hub and how you can route things and set up your hardware, and also kind of my approach to it as well. The MPC is very powerful, as you guys know, if you've been looking at what you can do with the MPC. I mean, it's basically like a DAW. So you kind of have to pick and choose your features that you really want to use with it, because it can be a little overwhelming at first. If you're looking for an MPC video that's going to be exclusive to just the MPC and making sounds directly in the MPC, that's not going to be what this video is about. It's going to be a hardware-centric focus on what you can do with other pieces of gear and incorporate it into the MPC, and how you can route that with an analog mixer and kind of figure out how your setup could be, and then potentially use that to go into Ableton Live. Let's get right to it. So first things first, I'm gonna make an empty project. So recently Akai made an update to the firmware for the MPCs, the most recent MPCs, and put it to 2.8. I think it's a little bit past that now at this point, but 2.8 introduced USB MIDI, which was quite a bit of a game changer, because before you could only use the MIDI in and out on the MPC Live, or the not MPC Live, sorry, MPC One. Same thing with the Live as well. You had basically limited functionality for MIDI. With the USB function, you can hook up a hub and then plug in a bunch of your hardware via USB. So it simplified the connections, and then also expanded your potential for connectivity, because before, like for the MPC One, you only had 16 channels of MIDI that could be sent out or received. Now, each box can potentially contain 16 channels of MIDI. So for instance, the Electron Rhythm, you are able to control each one of these voices via MIDI inside the MPC One. There is a fly, a freaking gnat that just showed up. So I think the best way to show this is real world examples. So I'm going to set up this setup, which does include these keyboards, by the way. Well, not the Microfig, I don't have that plugged in. It's gonna include the Sequential Pro 3 and the Novation Summit badass keyboards. They don't exactly fit on the desk though. So let's build out our project on the MPC One. So again, everything is plugged in via USB except for two pieces of gear, the Model D and the Novation Peak. And the reason I did that was because I ran out of USB ports. So basically I've got a splitter, a MIDI splitter right here, coming out of the MIDI out of the MPC One. Then it's each being split into the Model D and the Novation Peak. Very straightforward. So those will be off the MPC MIDI channels. But the Pro 3, Summit, Rhythm Mark II, and the Analog 4 Mark II, and the Keystep, Arturia Keystep, are all being MIDI'd via USB on there. So a little clarification right there. So in terms of audio routing, I have everything routed into an analog mixer, a Mackie Onyx 1640i, and I'm not using the Firewire in that device because I don't have Firewire on my computer anymore. But it's a great analog mixer and allows me to send channels. I can route bus 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 out to something else. So what I did was I routed 1 and 2 into the MPC One. So if I want to sample any of this stuff, I can easily route it into the inputs of the MPC One via the Mackie board that's to my right. And that's a nice convenience type of thing. So if you guys do go a hybrid-ish setup with your Akai devices or any kind of sampler in general, you could also route it technically via audio interface in your computer if you set it up that way. There's tons of ways to set up your gear, obviously, so I'm not saying that that's how you have to do it. All I'm saying is it's nice to be able to route your audio through a mixer so you don't have to unplug the 1/4-inch jacks all the time. All right, so back to the template and how we're gonna set this up. So first things first, let's get the MIDI stuff out of the way. So if we have a track, let's go MIDI right here, and we're going to select the MIDI port, which is gonna be MPC, because again, these two devices are set up on the MPC. And if you take a look at this, we've got Summit, Pro 3, MPC, Electron Rhythm Mark II, Analog 4 Mark II, and the Keystep. So already nice, convenient. I mean, I didn't have to do any kind of like, make sure you see this device type of crap in the settings or anything. It just automatically showed up. What I did have to do, which I guess I'm gonna point out right now, is I had to select sync on some of this stuff. So if it's not finding the clock when you play the MPC One or Live or whatever it is that you're using, and your devices aren't getting synced from that, one thing could be the case, you might not have the sync selected on the preferences here. And if you don't know how to get there, very simple, you hold shift, you hit menu, which goes into preferences, and you click the MIDI sync, and then all your options are right there, both input and output. So very convenient, and also it's nice to be able to not sync stuff if you want something running on its own clock or something like that. So little tip right there. The next thing is I always like to tell it which MIDI to receive, and it's the key step. So I'm gonna be using the key step as the MIDI input, because if I didn't do that, if I played the summit, it would also send notes to everything, and also any sequencer data that's on the electrons would also send out into MIDI inputs on the MPC One for anything that's receiving all that data. All right, a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. So we got MIDI channel 1, what is this? Yeah, this is, let's find a different patch real quick. So Novation Peak is on channel 1, and let's title that real quick. We'll say Peak. One thing I'm still like, it's not, the touch screen on the MPC One is just not, it's not like an iPad. It's like ATM bank touchscreen sensitivity. Anyways, this is besides the point. All right, so we got the Peak set up on channel 1. Next track, we're doing the same thing. In fact, we could actually copy this. Yeah, copy track to track 2, unused. And we're gonna call this one Model D. Do it. So track 2. Now, I think this is MIDI channel 7. I'm gonna find out real quick. Yep. If you have not used the Model D from Behringer, obviously it's a clone, but it's a very cheap clone in comparison. If you haven't tried this thing out, it is awesome. I mean, for 300 bucks, it just has like this flavor to it. So anyways, that's the MIDI side. Now moving on. So we got the Pro 3. Let's grab that MIDI port. I'm gonna go Pro 3 right here. Also, I need to change the inputs, which I should have done. Arturia key step, great. I'll probably just copy this from here on out. Perfect. That's a patch that I made in the previous video on the sequential Pro 3. Pro 3, great. Now I'm gonna copy this actually. We're gonna go copy track. Track 4, we'll call this Summit. Okay, and we're gonna go, there it is, see, Summit, excellent. So that's working, great. As you can see, really easy to set this up so far. Okay, moving on, next track. Actually, I'm gonna duplicate this as well, copy track. We'll go A4 on this. Great, here's A4. And we're gonna make that the Electron Analog Mark IV. Quick note, what I did on the Analog 4 before I started this video was I made a patch that was polyphonic. If you didn't know, you can actually use all 4 voices as a polyphonic sound on the Analog 4, so you can actually treat it as like just one patch. It does sound really cool. Now we need the rhythm. So let's go here, copy track, rhythm. Oh my God, this touchscreen drives me crazy sometimes. Now we need to change the input as well. Perfect. And again, this should all be Arturia key step, yeah. Great. So now we have 6 instruments set up on here that we can utilize. One thing I didn't mention was a lot of the times I like to use drum machines with the MPC One. The sampling capability and percussion drum type of stuff in the MPC is great, but if you're using it as a sequencer, triggering sequences on and off and all that, I find it a bit cumbersome to want to do any kind of like pad mutes in between changing up of sequences and all that. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't say sequences because a sequence is a broad term on the MPC One. I'm saying like a chunk of MIDI data, basically, or a track, I guess. Because you can go over to track mute, and then I can now mute any of these if I had MIDI data in there, which is great for performance. So let's say on track 9, I had a drum kit set up or layered a bunch of drum kits on there. So let's say I wanted to mute the hi-hats on and off, or just some sort of simple example, some sort of percussion element that would need to go on and off. But at the same time, I also had to trigger the track mutes. It's one or the other at that time. You can't really juggle that. With a separate drum machine, you can easily do that. So I can come over here, I can like, all right, this stuff is already muted. So these are the hats on the analog rhythm. I can easily just mute those on and off while it's playing, and then also trigger this stuff. By the way, I should have explained this as well. I have the rhythm on here, and that is track 1, I believe. Yeah. So the kick, essentially, is being on MIDI channel 1. What's interesting is you can actually do multiple MIDI channels. So that's track 2, track 3, 4, all the way up to 12. So interestingly, what I can do is actually split out the restrictions of the sequencer from Electron and put it into the MPC One. Obviously, the Electron sequencer has some great stuff about it with like the probabilities things, and you know, it's a fun sequencer. But sometimes you need a specific 12-bar loop that's different and uses a bunch of different stuff. And you can't really do that on Electron gear. If you wanted to have finite control over that stuff and look at it from a sequencer point of view, you'd be able to see all the notes on the MPC One. Sometimes it's apples and oranges when comparing that type of stuff, but I do find there's pros and cons to both of these. And the pros of the Akai sequencer, the MPC sequencer, is that you have lots of options and control and no polyphony issues or anything like that. So let's make something here. I'm actually going to do a different track. So yeah, we got a different sequence on both of these. I guess I'll do some percussion first. Maybe we'll do something, let's see. Let's set up we're at 120 right now. Let's slow it down to like 95, I guess. That's what I was working with. Let's just do like a 4 to the floor at the moment. Yeah, something like that. Quick note on the Analog Rhythm Mark II. I have it routed through a Drummer 1978, giving it some extra bite and crunch. I'm a fan of analog compression. Yeah, let's get this slap on let's just, you know, super basic stuff. All right, so nothing crazy right now. If I hit play on the MPC One, my quick little sequence here, super basic, is working. I am not using any MIDI data on here, so this is a bad example right here. Fully admit that. But I just want to show you that the clock is working. Everything's good to go in there. Now if we go to the A4, let's try something here. I'm kind of playing a bass line. In fact, if I'm playing a bass line, let's go to the Model D. Something like that. So we need, I think, 4 bars by the sounds of it. So I'm making my global sequence in the MPC One, 4 bars. And then I think I'm just going to try recording this. Kind of flub the end there. Worked. So we got ourselves a little bass line. Great, that's working. Now let's go to peak. Peak is pretty wet right now. Clash. I love changing up harmonies like that. We're gonna stick with that. Let's try it actually. Oh, you know what I should do? I should double this length here. So this is what's really nice about this. I started with 4 bars, but because we have the flexibility of MPC, I can double this and then treat this line as an 8-bar loop, and I could keep that 4-bar for the bass because I have the freedom right there. So we want a double length. Let's go double length, please. And now we have 8 bars. Now, if we go back to the Model D, it should have doubled it as well. It did, yeah. Sometimes you don't want it to double, you just want it to like use the first 4 bars or something. So you can actually go off of beats. So if we go 16 beats, now this technically should, yeah, so if you see this, it's basically saying the first 4 bars. That's what it's gonna be using on there. The only issue with this is you have to set up the maximum size of the sequence. I think. I could be wrong on this. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If your longest MIDI data notes, it's gonna be 8 bars. Then you need to set your sequence to 8 bars, and then that works. And then you can have shorter ones subdivided from there. I apologize if that's super confusing sounding, because I think it was. Let's go back to the peak. Yeah. All right. Let's go record. pretty basic, but it works. Let's go to the A4. I have this strong pull to want to go to F major, the F minor. We're gonna stick with the F minor. Okay, so we need like a little line. We'll stay with 8 bars as well on that, which again showcases the fact that I'm not stuck with the 4-bar limit on the Electron gear, because I'm utilizing the sequencer in the MPC One, but it's triggering the sounds out of the Analog 4. So there's that. So I gave it some flavor right there, and what we could do is maybe tone it down a bit so it's not so bright and abrasive. Yeah. Still kind of bright and abrasive. Also, I think, yeah, everything's being quantized in here. Normally I would have turned that off for keys. Or maybe I just, because I want to retain some sort of humanness to it, but I think it's fine for now. We got drums, we got peak, we got bass, we got Analog 4 type of sounds going on. We still have the Pro 3 and we have the Summit, and we haven't done anything audio-wise out of the MPC One. So one thing that Meems and I like to do in projects is we like to keep a audio channel or source free for harmony vocals or some sort of melodic vocal line that can be in there for a track. And the MPC One is great for this because Meems can record some audio loops or like some vocal kind of phrases or harmonic type of stuff, and then they can easily be tracks in here. So we can just trigger those on and off. The only problem when we do our hybrid recording into Ableton Live is if I have other things in here like drums or synthesizers and those harmony vocals at the same time, it's going, you know, there's only a stereo left and right that's out of this. And if you perform it live, you know, if you're actually recording all this stuff live at the same time into Ableton, then you're down mixing that. Anything that's coming out of the MPC One is getting mixed together into a stereo track. That is the only caveat. Solution is buy a Live 2 or the big one, the MPC X, whatever it is. I haven't really looked at it. You get more channel outs. In fact, I actually have considered getting the Live 2 just because I'd have 3 stereo outs, because then I could do some more sampling. But this is specifically for a hybrid setup. You know, if you're just working in the MPC One, you could always explode your tracks or load it up into the DAW version of MPC software, I guess that's what it's called. Yeah, MPC software. You could load it up in the DAW version and then work with your tracks from there. That's definitely a possibility. For this hybrid setup, I really enjoy working with the hardware live. It has that DNA put into it. You know, it's a tough thing to articulate, but there's definitely something that happens when other things are playing with each other. People recording bands always say, like, you know, it's different when you play live together versus doing one track at a time. And a lot of bands try to capture that together at the same time live feel. I really feel like there's something about that happens with electronic instruments as well. I could be just having a giant placebo effect happening inside my brain. Back to this. We have the Summit and the Pro 3 that we could still do some stuff with. So Pro 3. This could just be some like extra trimmings. Some clicks in there. Let's go. I think something like that will work out. I'm just gonna do 16 beats on here because it's gonna be the same stuff. Oh, you know what? I should turn off the timing. Global time correct off. Thank you. Now this will be loose and possibly out of time. Have a look at our rhythm. Oh yeah, look at that sloppiness. Sometimes you gotta get sloppy, guys. Moving on to the Summit. So this is a sweeping pad sound. I could change it, but This is literally the patch that launches with the Summit. We loaded up for the first time. More like that. Yeah, we're gonna keep this nice and soft and hollow-ish. Ooh, maybe I could do something. Let's see. Okay, I think I got it. Let's do it. Okay. So I'm going to adjust volume on this guy. Pro 3, I brought that down a bit because it's peaking, hitting my eardrums a little bit. So again, simple example of what we got going on here. There's some stuff being triggered. Now, this is what I want to show you when it comes to sequencing, or the MPC One as a sequencer hub, because as you can see, all these yellow chips on the MPC One are representing the tracks, except for the rhythm. Rhythm's out of character because I'd have to actually mute everything on the rhythm right here. But keep in mind, so I can actually just take everything out, and now it's just the rhythm, right? And then I can mute various stuff on here. So we got this going on, you know? So then I can bring in the melody and start writing the cutoff, give it some character. Pro 3. It can't reach over here for the filter. You get it though. Now I'll bring the peak. Now A4 and Summit, maybe? Hey, that was a sloppy example. And again, I don't have any audio coming out of the MPC One yet. That was something that I was gonna wait for Memes to come in, do some track type of stuff on there. In fact, I think now would be a great time to have Memes come in, take a listen. She could say whether or not she likes it or not, and we might switch it up completely or make something out of this. All right? Fast forward a few hours. We had actually gone out, did some stuff in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And now we're back doing this.
Have some coffee.
Yeah. Memes, how you doing?
I'm good. Excited
Excellent.
to hear.
What I was thinking about doing is having you take a listen and then throw some vocals as like loops.
Okay. That's cool. I like that drive.
So I'm thinking like a 4 or 8 bar vocal loop, like.
What is it now, Dad?
Oh, there we go, yeah. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the looper. So I hold Shift, press the looper right here. And now we've got input 1 and 2.
Check, check.
Yeah, you see we got some input right there, which is good. Let me turn this up, actually. So I guess we'll stick with 8 bars on here. Let's just record some stuff and see what happens. Let me export this. I'll call this Memes 3, because we tried a few examples that didn't quite work.
It didn't quite work.
Cool. All right, so this is a bit of a crude example. Normally we'd take a little bit more time and kind of polish things,
Right.
but like this is an example of grabbing like a vocal piece to be able to put it as something to trigger in here for the sequencing group. So now what we would do, we would kind of perform or try out some performance type of stuff on here. Like maybe I'll take out the kick and a bit of the hat. So we'll have like
Just
a
some
little bit of
improv?
bass. Yeah, just a little bit of improv on here. I'm gonna drop the filter of the peak all the way down so it's just barely there. So fast forward next day, we decided to work on some ideas, right? And now we're going to go through them and record them. Yeah.
Props.
Improv.
Keep you in my heart now. Keep you in the end, I'm part of me now. I don't wanna let go of the love that we once knew. I've been in the rain now. Keeps on pouring on my empty space now. As if the sky can feel the pain.
Yo, that was cool. We'd written some ideas basically yesterday.
These past couple of days, and I had a few lines that were written, and I don't
just
know
kind of like jotting down some ideas.
I don't know if we're gonna keep it or not, but just to have, and then just improving the rest.
Right? Yeah. It's a really cool process. So like one thing that I definitely wanted to highlight in this video was the experience of like you do a setup and even just keeping the same sounds. You know, obviously we could go through a whole bunch of different sounds. First idea, I did actually have a different sound on the peak, and then I changed it to the electric piano sample sound for the other ideas. But like the showcase behind this is taking like a setup and then doing 3, 4, 5 different ideas with it and seeing what comes out of it, right?
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of inspiration, you never want to edit yourself in the middle of an inspiration, right?
That's hard for me because I always want to edit. I'm like, I don't like that. But you just got to go with the inspiration, right?
Yeah, it's such a killer if you start editing yourself mid-inspiration, because you'll stop coming up with creative ideas because you're like, oh, well, this, edit. So I did want to highlight also that we track these into Ableton. So looking at the screen right here, you can see all of our tracks, multi-track. I didn't use the MPC One on this stuff, and I know I was saying I was going to highlight being able to have some samples being triggered in the MPC One. We didn't end up doing that at all. It was just ideas for these beats. Yeah, bit of a change up. I wanted to show that like all this was recorded into Ableton. So now what I can do is go in and time align the downbeat for this particular jam to 108, and then it's basically going to be in time in the grid, and then we could work on this beat beyond that. The initial idea is there, like the DNA of the idea, you can feel it. Yeah, the foundation is there in the track, you can feel it, and then that's kind of like a launching point to go forward into doing like a finished track. Yeah. Yeah. That is gonna do it for this video. It's been a multi-day video journey.
Yes.
Right? I wanted to highlight the MPC One as a sequencing hub, and hopefully this video did that for you guys, and we got to share some of our creative process. And that's always fun, right?
It's always fun. And also, like, let us know what your creative process is.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm always curious about that, because there is so many ways to go about how you write, produce, mix. Like, is it all one shot on a 2-channel recorder, or is it highly detailed, 1 track at a time type of stuff? You know, there's all kinds of ways of doing it. It's really cool. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and sub to the channel if you haven't already. If you watched all the way to the end and you haven't subbed yet, hit that button, right? Thank you very much for all the support. We've been growing steadily on this channel. It's really cool to see community starting to form around it. If you leave us a comment, we always read them, and we do appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for another video.
Deuces.
Deuces.